Greetings, dear listener. You're listening to the Jaunty Mantis podcast. This is Jesse,
This is Maddie.
and we are presenting to you today a special bonus episode.
True
Why?
story.
Yeah, why do we do these?
Well, the Jaunty Mantis is released in seasons, 12 episodes per. And the reason for that is so we have time to take a breather, get extra recordings done, make sure we don't fall behind. So if you're listening to this, that means that we're in between seasons.
We made it.
So we'll be back soon. And until then, enjoy this episode, this bonus episode. It's not necessarily about role playing game topics, but it is very nerd adjacent.
And we hope you enjoy it.
Yep.
Greetings. You are listening to the Jaunty Mantis podcast, a podcast of creative questions for curious gamers. I'm Jesse, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Manny. Say hello, Manny.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? What is wrong with that? Jesus.
It went a little nasal at the end, and I just went a little
Yeah.
flimmy. Yeah. Sorry, I
Cool.
know I need to clear my throat, but I have a mic in front of me. What do you want, people?
Yeah, and I'm just me, you know. I was at work and my boss says, I was looking for coffee. We're at a conference and I was trying to find out where the cups were. And my boss was next to me and she goes, Matt, you look confused. Can I help you find something? And I'm like, oh no, that's just my default state. So, hey, look, that's just me. So if I do an uncomfortable intro, you're just gonna have to deal with it. What's our
Well,
what's our question?
yeah, I have a question for you. Why is Ahsoka so good?
I have a counter question because we're going to talk
Okay.
about that. Why can't Star Wars fans have nice things? Because you and I and Kurt, who was in our gaming group, we're all talking about how much we love this show. But Jesus Christ, the painting men sure don't. And other people at other podcasts don't. And, I love that we have a diversity in how we watch things. Like some stuff lands for some people and it doesn't land for others. And life would be really boring if everything landed the same way for everybody. But I'm absolutely loving Ahsoka. We're up to 4 episodes at the time of this recording,
Yep.
right? So you want to do like a halfway through the season review?
I just want to say I think, I feel like the people that don't like Ahsoka and the people that hated Last Jedi, that Venn diagram is a circle. And and conversely, the other way, people that liked Last Jedi,
Mhm.
and people who like Ahsoka is also a circle. I'm sure there's probably actually outliers, but
Sure.
I just I really hate to say it, and I'm sorry if you disagree with this. You may have a very well reasoned take. Hey, write us an email, please. If
I
you
dare
do,
you.
if you disagree, I dare you.
Keep it short.
But the thing I loved about Last Jedi is that Last Jedi says it blows the lid off what Star Wars can be.
Mm-hmm.
And Ahsoka, I feel like, is in that vein, despite being a continuation of characters wrapped up deeply in the events of the Clone Wars and the prequels, and the Rebellion,
Mm-hmm.
and all that stuff. I feel like it is taking Star Wars in a different direction about what it can be. In particular,
Literally.
the Force.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Ahsoka, I hope I'm right. I am crossing my fingers because in I think the first or second episode, I think Filoni gives us a little bit of a taste about where this is going. And it starts with the idea. So full spoilers for Ahsoka, everybody, for the first 4 episodes. But in Ahsoka, there is the idea of another galaxy. Star Wars has always been about the one galaxy, unless you're reading like the books with what are they called? The Yuzhang Vong,
The
the
Yuzong Vong.
that's what they are. The skin job S&M like environmentalists or something like that. I
They
don't
really
remember.
like coral, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Like they're from another galaxy, right? But it for the most part 99% of the time Star Wars is always about the galaxy that they are all in.
Which is
And
wild. That is entirely wild. It's just like, it's just got to be confined to this one galaxy.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
or how this one family affects this entire galaxy.
which speaks to what you were saying about The Last Jedi, but with Ahsoka, um the idea of going to another galaxy in the Star Wars universe is insanely interesting. And there is a slight hint at it, and it takes place on that hyperspace, that giant hyperspace ring, and it's towards the end of episode 1 or in a I can't remember which one it is, but the main female character, Morgan Elspeth, I think her name is.
Yeah.
She she's communicating with Balon Skull, who he's doing an amazing job as that character. We'll get to that in a second, but she's communicating through them, and one thing about our Star Wars galaxy that we know is their communication is very specific. It's this hollow image. It's crappy. It's blippy. They cut out. Their voice gets warped. And we know this because, like, all right, Star Wars is a huge galaxy, and this is a form of communication. It's a form of communication you can do anywhere. And that's why it's so shitty and low quality as far as a holographic image. Like, our world has better communication technology than Star Wars, you
Well, it
know?
doesn't convey messages like faster than the speed of light across galactic distances, to be
Mm-hmm.
fair, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah.
But the quality, like we have high quality HD screens. I'm communicating with you over Zoom, not by shitty hollow images that like flicker and blip out for dramatic effect, which I'm not complaining about. I love. But on this hyperspace ring, if I I'll get to my point eventually, folks. On this hyperspace ring, when that communication technology, that hollow image appears, it is fluid, it is clear, it is highly detailed. There's little to no blipping. It's almost as if it is of a higher technology or a different technology. And I think that is Filoni hinting and saying, we are about to take Star Wars in a bold new direction, because Star Wars has always been trapped by lightsabers and stormtroopers and TIE fighters. And I love all of these things, but at some point, we're just going to exhaust it. And I think
So,
Filoni's saying we are going in a new direction. We are going to start going to blow the top off of this shit.
and we're going to do it with witchcraft.
Yeah, man. So I'm super excited. You know, I'm super excited about it. I hope I am not wrong about this, because this
So,
is exactly what Star Wars needs.
I agree. I agree. This is the thing too, that like it Rebels and some of the stuff in Clone Wars that Filoni did primed the pump for this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also, again, Last Jedi, Rey's meditation scene and the
Mm-hmm.
cave
Mm-hmm.
is they've never, the normal movies, the normal continuity have never leaned into how fucking weird the Force is.
Uh-huh.
Like, no, literally, it gives people magic powers. It's
Mm-hmm.
bizarre and poorly understood.
Mm-hmm.
And you see people indoctrinated in one tradition talking about it in front of people that don't believe in it and don't understand it most of
Mm-hmm.
the time. And so they just seem like experts.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
what Filoni's been saying, I feel like, and again, Last
With the
Jedi did, is
Mortis
like, no,
gods.
you don't know shit. You
Mm-hmm.
don't know shit about
Mm-hmm.
the Force. It is an entire galaxy where the Force exists. There's gonna be more than Jedi and Sith.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
I love the Night Sisters inclusion. Like,
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. multiple Force traditions and how we perceive and understand the Force. My favorite moment in Last Jedi is Luke's reaction to Rey touching the dark side because she does so effortlessly and she does so without any of the preconceived ways we understand the dark side. She just touches it just in a brief moment. And he's like, what the hell did you just do? Like, it's like everything he's learned to avoid, she just reaches out and grabs it right in front of him, just touches it very briefly. And it scares the shit out of him. Right. And, I have these conversations with my girlfriend often about how, for the Force always talks about balance, but the light side is constantly keeping itself from the dark element. It's constantly rejecting the dark side to the point where it is hurting them and they don't realize it. They think they're doing the right thing by avoiding the dark side, but by not letting a little bit of it in and creating balance, they are essentially opening themselves up to catastrophe because they can't avoid it forever, you know. And to cite a podcast called Core, which is a video game podcast, one of the hosts, John Jagger, on that podcast pointed out that, usually when a Jedi crosses over to the dark side, they go from being this like stoic wizard to then being this mustache twirling, crazy person. And I think that's what, as John points out on that episode, that's what makes Balon Skoll such a great character because he's our,
Oh, my boy Balin.
you know, he is that stoic bad guy. He's still a Jedi, you know. I absolutely love it.
Yep.
What is
Yep.
your favorite moment in Ahsoka so far?
I think it's probably the Balin Ahsoka confrontation on
Mm-hmm.
in the latest episode. Just like, like I don't know, there's parts where he seems angry,
Mm-hmm.
but like it's a lightsaber fight. But like when he's just talking to her,
Mm-hmm.
like I think he's very much as what would Dan Carlin call it? He's like he's a historical arsonist. Again, uh just some people in history, you imagine that they have to burn everything down so that new things can grow. Yeah, I mean that's him.
Mm-hmm.
He's just like, this whole thing is fucked. The Republic was corrupt.
Mm-hmm.
The Empire was evil.
Mm-hmm.
The war didn't go long enough. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
needed to be reduced to being cavemen. And
Mm-hmm.
then from that, we can grow something new outside this millennial old cycle of Jedi and Sith.
Right.
Like something new can grow out of it. I don't know what I don't think, despite having said they'll get power from doing this, I think he just said that to keep his
Mm-hmm.
apprentice in line. I don't know if he believes. I don't think he wants power. I don't think he
Mm-hmm.
wants to be in charge. Again, 4 episodes out, might be wrong. We got two more to find out because
Oh, is it six? I thought it was eight. I thought it
Oh,
was
is
eight
it? I
episodes.
hope it's
I
8.
hope it's eight.
So here, let me relate this to our actual topic of the show,
Mm-hmm.
right? Fantasy Flight Games had the Star Wars RPG license for a while,
Yes.
and they produced like 3 core books using their gimmicky dice system, which I actually love and think is a great system. I played a couple mini campaigns of it. And they had the Scum and Villainy one, or
Mm-hmm.
Edge of the Empire one, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it was called. Basically the Firefly-esque, you're on Tatooine, like the Marshal of Tatooine, whatever. And then they had the Rebellion one where you're fighting the as a rebel in the Galactic Civil War. And then they had Force and Destiny. And Force and Destiny's default campaign assumption is that you are awakened as a Force sensitive and you're just trying to figure out what this means
Mm.
and maybe uncover the legacy of the Jedi. And, it's just like when it came out, I read it. I was like, cool, Force Power Star Wars. I'll try it. I ran a little bit of the campaign book they put out, but it never really clicked with me because I had not yet seen The
Mm.
Last Jedi. I
Mm-hmm.
hadn't seen the part of Rebels with the weird fungus dude and like
Uh-huh.
the wolves
Uh-huh.
and the world between worlds. And I hadn't
Mm.
seen Ahsoka. And now that I have, I'm like, I have ideas.
Yeah,
I get
man.
way too literal about stuff, and Ahsoka has been like just the last final, like the last little piece of the dam out that's just like, you can make the force really fucking weird, man.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got permission now, and I love that.
Yep. Star Wars is at its best when it gets weird. The space whales, when they are, this is something from Rebels. It's appeared in Ahsoka. It's obviously the mechanism that's going to get them where they need to go. But there's all this other weird stuff that happens, and Rebels, is very good at showing you brief moments of the weird, but there's a connecting theme in all of the Star Wars animation, which is the Mortis gods, the three um force gods that are on that weird asteroid in the Clone Wars cartoon
Can we just
series.
talk about how weird those episodes were and how
Yeah,
great that was?
and how
I
it
was like,
opened up
what
your
is going
idea about
on?
what, like I say this all the time. Dave Filoni is to Star Wars what Chris Claremont was to the X-Men. It doesn't at this point, no disrespect to George. I know people say like George Lucas killed their childhood or whatever, blah, 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 blah. I never agreed with that. Like, hey, George, thanks for making Star Wars. As far as I'm concerned, Dave Filoni is Star Wars. Dave Filoni has made Star Wars deep and interesting and has given it a weird potential that I think will take it into the future. If we can, if the fans can stop fighting with each other over it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I okay, this is cruel. I'm gonna say it anyway because it's my podcast.
Do it.
I genuinely feel that what people don't like about newer Star Wars properties like this is they're
Mm-hmm.
just not great at dealing with complexity.
But these people will tell you they love Andor.
Eh,
Wait, does Andor have complexity or is Andor all depth?
Andor is like wading like neck deep through subtext that I feel like, you know, not everybody's getting.
Mm-hmm.
Like I still again, this is okay, here's my moral cowardice as I sit here in my office. It can't be seen on camera, but right over there, I'm
Mm-hmm.
pointing to my right for the listeners at home,
Mm-hmm.
is a giant picture that looks like it's a poster. It's designed to look faded, and it's got a picture of Darth Vader pointing, and it says, "Your empire needs you." And I don't look at that all the time. And since watching Andor, every time I do, I'm like, I gotta take that down.
Yeah.
Because the Empire is not just like wacky British accents and suits, and Darth Vader's cool because he's like so tough. The part that wormed itself into my brain when I was a small child, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, Andor made them brutal fucking fascists, terrible
Mm-hmm.
monsters. Like,
Yeah. And it really does show you why there's a rebellion, you know. Like it's one thing to say, oh yeah, there's this horrible thing happening and we're a rebellion. There's another thing to show you that this had to happen. That like this like Andor fills you with dread. You're I know how this turns out, and I'm like, oh god, like this is horrible. Like the actress who plays Mon Mothma suffering through her silence and feeling ineffective. Spoilers for Andor. That like she is not able to take control of her own life and can trust nobody around her. The show is just killing you with these ideas and these concepts to be like, this is so fucking hopeless that these people had no choice but to do it dirty. And that's what the rebellion is. It's not all fucking like, great shot, kid. Now, let's blow this thing and go home. That's the adventure side. And Andor is the side of it that's like, the Empire is terrible, and here's why. And
Yeah.
this is what these people had to do in order to fight it. And I know that a lot of people are like, "Oh, Andor doesn't get good until episode 3." I love slow stuff. I was in it from the first 5 minutes. I was like, "This is different."
Just the
I'm
world building of the corporate sector and that brick city and the
Yep.
gong and like, oh, so good. So good.
My favorite thing in Ahsoka is Huang, the
Yeah.
droid, by
Yeah. He's
perfectly
great.
voiced by David Tennant. Perfect character, a great character in the Clone Wars cartoon, but then mind blowing in the show. And this is a show where Rosario Dawson, one of my favorite actors, is playing Ahsoka, one of my favorite characters. And the restraint in that character that this actor is showing you. Because like that's another complaint I've heard about Ahsoka, where they're like, all the characters are different. Like the last time I saw these characters, they had life and energy in a cartoon, and they don't have that anymore. And it's like, yeah.
That's that's the same complaint about Last Jedi. Like they did Luke
Mm-hmm.
dirty. I'm like, if you are the same person at 50
Mm-hmm.
that you were when you were 18, your
Mm-hmm.
life is tragic.
Mm-hmm. And I think that the context of what's happened in Star Wars, like the Rebels characters specifically, are have survived a terrible thing. Kanan is gone, Ezra is gone. Like they beat the Empire, but now what do they do with themselves? Like they have no choice but to kind of sit in the monotony of bureaucracy. And then you have Sabine who feels completely useless and out of place. And then you have Ahsoka who's like, the product of all of these terrible things, who's has this like what is that? The guilt of survivor syndrome. Like
Yeah,
that's what I
survivor's
get.
guilt.
Survivor's guilt. That's what it is. That's what I get from Rosario's performance as Ahsoka. And I think it's fucking brilliant that she has this survivor's guilt. She didn't play a role in the rebellion, like she was fulcrum and she helped build those events, but she was out of the picture for a lot of it. We still don't know where she was for a significant portion of it, right? And maybe I'll be proven wrong. I don't know. But the brief moments where she starts smiling again and you see that energy from the cartoon version of the character when she was younger and it's just peeking through. This show is fucking brilliant. But Hugh Wang, that's my favorite part.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, like Carrie was talking about that, just like she's so different, and it was not Carrie complaining about it,
Mm-hmm.
when we're watching. She's like, she's so different because I mean all the things she's been through, and I'm like, yeah, well, one of the things is too is like I know she'd bristle at this term, but she's flying around with a repository of Jedi training and lore.
Mm-hmm.
She's still connected to the Force and using all this stuff. At this point,
Mm-hmm.
she's kind of a Jedi master,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, she's not going to be incredibly impulsive. Like she's not 15.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, she grew up.
yeah, she's seen some shit too.
Yeah.
Like
And she had to grow up after they kicked her out of the order. And then
she
they were
left.
like, well, they kicked her out um for political reasons. And then when her innocence was proven, then they welcomed her back and she was like, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
So in my version, they kicked her out. She just decided not to take the sloppy seconds and come back. She stood up for herself.
The I love too. This is related. We're off Ahsoka now. Sorry, we're just freewheeling Dave Filoni Star Wars. Uh, I don't want to call them redemption arcs,
Mm-hmm.
but the Dave Filoni touch with the villains of like humanizing them, the way he
Mm-hmm.
does that over such a slow burn. And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like Balin is like that perfected. Like he's from the moment you see him, he's like, this he's humanized just by the portrayal of the actor and the dialogue. But like, I mean, Ahsoka was sort of friends with Ventress for a minute. Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, Darth Maul
Mm-hmm.
being a character, like
Yeah. The balls on that creative team The balls on that creative team to say, hey, remember that guy that got chopped in half and was like, I fucking Obi-Wan Kenobi as he was falling down the shaft? Like, yeah, we're going to bring him back and actually make him into an actual character. And at first, you're going to bristle against it because the idea is kind of ridiculous. But this is a show about space wizards with laser swords. So you'll get over it because we're going to do great work.
I mean, it's Filoni that I have to thank for, sadly, what happened with the Solo movie. Because, like,
Hmm.
at the end of Solo, when, like that hologram of like the owner of like whatever Red Death or Dawn, whatever, the
Yeah.
leader comes up and it's fucking Maul. I'm like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
excited about that because I want to see Maul do more in the middle of his life,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
or I guess pretty near the end of his life, actually.
Well, that's the weird thing about the Solo movie and the timeline. If you go and you look at it on the Disney Plus hub, where it fits in is kind of odd, you know. Like I knew Han Solo was older than Princess Leia, but it's like I didn't know he was that much older. Like it's kind of weird, you know. The age of the characters is something Star Wars kind of gets really bendy with. You know, like Ezra is like 14 or 15 and he meets Princess Leia, but she's like an adult, sort of. So she must be late teens or early 20s. And Luke is older than her, right? Isn't like just by a couple of minutes. So, like, I thought he was just a brash, smart mouth kid being played by an adult actor. But, you know, it doesn't really matter. But at the same time, the timing kind of gets screwed up in the way that they're presenting it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this show is amazing. I love I think about it. I find myself drifting off and thinking about it. I'm restraining myself from going and rewatching the episodes. I keep wanting to go watch specific parts because they are putting a lot of stuff on the screen that I think people are going to go back and look at and be like, wait a minute, because that's another thing that Filoni has done well. Like there are people that have found images of Grogu in Rebels, like on like cave paintings and shit, or at least what we assume to be Grogu. Right? It could just be another Yoda alien who uses the Force, but probably Grogu, right? So
Yeah,
like,
Dave Filoni's version of the long dog from Bluey is Grogu. So,
Bluey, another amazing show.
oh, it's so
Yeah.
good. Okay, so what was I going to say? Yeah, I saw a TikTok where I'm not sure that I believe the evidence, but like I'm waiting to see the cockpit like view of
Hmm.
the Ghost again because I'm pretty sure from a TikTok I saw that there is a little circular picture of Kanan like
Played by
on,
Freddie Prince Jr. Yeah, I've seen
yeah,
it.
on the dash.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think we're gonna see live action Kanan. I think that's just Filoni flexing.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I think he's just like it's like watching a fantasy show and realizing that the sconces or the torches that they put on the walls have discoloration from the smoke, even though they're not lit up because it's during the day. It's like somebody thought about this and said, we need to subtly impress the idea that this is a lived-in environment to the audience. So we can't just have torches on the walls in this fake set of fake stone. We need to impress upon the audience that your subconscious is going to be like, oh, there's black smudge parts on the wall where the flames are. But you're not going to say it out loud unless you're me and you're pressing pause and pointing it out, right? I
Yep.
think that's what that is. Could be wrong, but our most recent episode of Ahsoka ends with the gateway or whatever they call it. And, you know, she's waking up and there's Anakin Skywalker. And I've never been excited to see the Christian Hayden Christensen version of Anakin Skywalker. And one of the biggest complaints I had about Clone Wars, a show I love, is that the Anakin Skywalker in Clone Wars it's like the tale of two Anakins because the Anakin in the movies is so significantly different in personality and presentation. And for some fucking reason, maybe it's just wish fulfillment. I think that's all coming together. I think those two versions of the character is coming together right now in the next episode. I think he's going to nail
Yep, I'm excited for that.
it. The movie theater near you. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I did. I'm not driving to Dallas tomorrow, but you know.
Yeah. What the fuck is inside that one Inquisitor when he got cut open? There was like smoke or bugs inside of him or something. What the fuck was that? Was that some
Oh, that
fucking Night Witch,
yeah, that
Night
was
Sister
night.
magic? Yeah.
Yeah, night sister magic. Or night witch magic. Yeah,
Yeah.
night sister. Yeah, that's there. Yeah, it's night sister witchcraft. There we
Right.
go.
Right. Right.
Yeah, because that's how you see it in Rebels and stuff. It's always the green smoke. So whatever that Inquisitor had obviously been enchanted by, you know,
Yeah.
Oregon.
Yeah. My brother, my younger brother, because my older brother and I love Rebels, Clone Wars, all that shit. It's awesome. My younger brother hasn't seen that much of it, but he started watching Ahsoka. And after watching the first episode, he was like, I think I need to go back and watch Rebels and Clone Wars. And I was like, watch Rebels, then watch Ahsoka, then go back and watch Clone Wars. Like Clone Wars, you got to watch chronologically. If you are hearing the sound of my voice and you've never watched the Clone Wars animated show, look it up online, watch it chronologically. It's so much better. For whatever reason, this is the last smelly thing about the George Lucas era of Star Wars. They specifically did it under George's instructions to be shown out of chronological order. It didn't work. I respect the effort, but not the result. Find the list online, watch it in chronological order. You will be doing yourself a favor. So, yeah, can't
So
wait.
we like Star Wars. I don't know if you listeners of the John T. Mantis
Yeah, I could
podcast
do.
knew that.
Yeah, I could do a whole episode on Padme Amidala. Yeah.
It's still on the books to happen.
Yeah. Email us or don't. And we may
No,
do
just
it or
please,
not,
please email us,
but keep
please.
it brief.
Yeah, John T. Mantis at Gmail. No, make it as long as you want.
No,
It's
if you make it as
it's
long as
your
you want, I'm
time.
going to cut it down. What do we think's going to happen? Episode 5. From the bottom
It's a
base.
trick.
Which part?
Hmm?
Which part?
I don't think the whales take them there. I think she uses the
Oh.
world between worlds to get there.
Oh, okay. I think she uses the world between worlds to get there. I think that Hera gets there with the whales.
Oh, you think Hera's going too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
Well,
I,
anything to get more chopper time.
oh my God. The best chopper scene ever is when they're following them and she's like, would you put the tracker on their ship? No, I didn't go through your stuff. And then they show it. They show what his stuff is. His little lunchbox full of parts.
What was crazy is I could understand him.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, oh my
Yes.
God, I can understand what Chopper's saying.
Do you
Like,
know who does the voice for Chopper?
I don't know who does the voice for Chopper.
Filoni.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Love it.
I do want to say this was really funny. This is just a little anecdote related to it. I was talking to my buddy Mark, who's over on Saturday, and I was telling him like, "Oh man, you're watching Ahsoka. Okay, I'm glad you love it, but you gotta go watch Rebels. He hasn't watched Rebels. Like you gotta
Oh.
go watch Rebels." Then we got talking about other things about Star Wars. Like, oh God, have you seen this? There's this guy on TikTok who puts Gandalf's fall music like the
What?
ethereal elven choir music, like
Uh-huh.
oh, oh, like that whole thing. He puts it on Star Wars scenes to see if it hits harder, and it does, like
Oh my
every
God.
single time. Like
Send this to
Order
me.
66 with that music. Jesus, it's harrowing. But
Fucking
the
send
one
it to
that
me.
the one that I opened to show him is just like it's him being like, here's me, I'm putting this thing here to see if it hits harder. And
Mm.
then there's Ezra on top of a fuel tank in like a flight suit being like, come on, let's get out of here. And I'm like, stop, stop, stop. One,
Yep.
I can't bear the grief of watching that scene again with that
Mm.
music. And two, little bit of spoilers for
Yeah.
Rebels right there.
I have seen Rebels 3 times in total now. And on the third time, I cried just as much at those parts as I did the first 2 times. The only difference was this time my girlfriend and I were holding each other while we did it.
Oh, it's like me in that Subaru commercial where the dad drops his daughter off at college.
I think this is a little different, but okay.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying I cry just as hard every time I see it.
Oh, okay. I thought you were
My
saying the
daughter is
Subaru
7
commercial.
podcast listeners. She's 7.
I thought you were saying a Subaru commercial was the equivalent of the moment where Kanan dies.
Yes, that's
Spoilers for Rebels. And the moment, not only the moment where Kanan dies, here's the brilliance of how they do that because everything does that. Every show, every movie fucking does a sacrifice moment. Rebels not only kills it in that moment, they also have the moment where Ezra finds the gateway. And of course, the first thing he wants to do after he gets his bearings is go also save Kanan, which you could totally do, and that would be the show. But the restraint that the creative team had to dangle that in front of you for dramatic effect, but then not let him do it, chef's kiss.
mm-hmm,
Beautiful.
mm-hmm.
Just beautiful. I love it.
Have you seen, by the way, Freddie Prinze Jr. talk about the fight between Darth Maul and Obi-Wan,
No,
the final encounter from Rebels?
no. Send that to me as well.
Like I'm just going to paraphrase it for the podcast listeners. If you watch that fight, which you should, because you should have watched Rebels by now.
Mhm.
Spoilers for Rebels. Like Darth Maul tracks down Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan's gonna like, I'm gonna have to end you because you just figured out about Luke. So
Mhm.
um when it happens and they're about to throw down, the first stance he does is the old hand out, saber over his head,
Mhm.
like General Kenobi stance.
Mhm.
And then he thinks about it for a moment and is like, oh no, mistakes were made. I'm not that guy anymore. And switches into the old Obi-Wan stance that he fought Vader with.
Mhm.
And then thinks about it again because he's been playing this fight through his head for his whole life since he saw his master get killed by this guy. He switches into Qui-Gon's stance to bait Maul into the
Oh.
same attack and then just gets him in one shot.
Oh man, I gotta fucking watch that again.
And it's like, I wouldn't have believed it if it weren't Filoni, if it weren't a Filoni show.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is a lesson about creativity, right? Like if you're going to do anything creatively, take the time to add depth to it, complexity, purpose. Otherwise, it's just masturbation. And I feel like that's
Which is
what
fun, but not something you generally do in front of lots of other people.
but even though but Star Wars fans do it all the time in front of each other. They just like to hit each other and call each other names while they do it. So, I will say this. Um, I say it every time. Star Wars, I'm still waiting for Quinlan Voss, as is in the comics. Not the Surfer Bro version that's in Clone Wars. The you know, native mystic stereotype that they used him with for that one. But like that
You mean
storyline.
Psychometry Star Sheriff?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The party dude mystic tracker character that they made him into, which I thought was terrible. But yeah, give us
All right.
Quinlan Voss.
We keep trying to get out of this, but I keep wanting to add context. Just when Maddie and I lived together was the golden age of the Dark Horse Clone Wars comics,
Oh, they were wonderful.
which were so, so good. And
Mm,
Quinlan Voss in those was such an interesting character.
yes.
Like just so cool.
Yes.
Um and yeah, we just loved reading those books. And those books are the reason why
Mm-hmm.
every time I see the Order 66 scene, I get teary. Because
Right.
it's certainly not Luke what Lucas did to the movie. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I mean,
Yeah.
Filoni has had Plo Koon and Ki-Adi-Mundi in, Clone Wars, and you got to know them a little bit better. Plo Koon like more so than
Mm,
Ki-Adi-Mundi. But those comics made like I was like, I know each of these people, and I felt like I just watched a friend die every time I
right.
watched that.
So, for those of you who don't know, the Dark Horse Star Wars comics, although they are not necessarily canon, they have pulled some stuff from them. But it was like the writers and artists of those illustrators of those comics knew that they had some heavy lifting to do. It was like a double-edged sword. There was like, well, the prequels didn't really meet expectations. They didn't land, you know, I like the prequels way more than the sequels, but I still don't think the prequels are all that great. Like at least Lucas was trying for something different. It just didn't land at all. He completely shit the bed. But what the creators did in those Dark Horse comics is they were like, okay, now it's on us. Much like Filoni did with Clone Wars, the show, and Rebels, it's like they were like it's on us to now prove that this was actually how this played out, and that these convergence of characters and storylines mean something. And the Quinlan Voss character starts his story starts with him not knowing who he is. He's lost, he has amnesia. He's a Jedi who has forgotten who he is and wakes up in a moment of rage and shoots force lightning at people who are trying to kill him. And that's how the story begins. That's what we know of this character. He's a Jedi who has lost his memory. And although he understands what the commonplace things are of the Star Wars universe, he's forgotten all of that training, all of that build up, all of the ritual and subtext to the religion of being a Jedi. So he's like dancing back and forth over the line of light side and dark side as he's trying to figure out what the fuck happened to him. And it is super fucking compelling. It's dark. There is a weird, there's a weird element of Padawan and Master because his Padawan is Elias Sakura, the Twi'lek, the aqua colored Twi'lek. I think she has a French accent in the Clone Wars show, and they briefly make mention of it in the Clone Wars show that they were master and apprentice. But in the comic, they also hint that the two of them might have had an intimate or sexual relationship, which obviously looking back at it through the modern lens is super fucked up. But I don't enjoy stories that only make me feel good and are okay. Like it adds context to the character. Now they may have never had that relationship, and that might have just been what I read into it. But there were moments, a big theme of the books of that era is like, isn't it fucked up that Jedi take on these children as students and then they basically have adopted them and have these quasi parental relationships with them, and all at the same time they're not allowed to form attachments to them, but they depend on each other in life and death situations. And it's a huge theme of the throughput of the Star Wars prequel comics from Dark Horse.
Yeah, it's just that like we're utterly failing because we are failing this attachment thing. Like we
Exactly.
can't possibly actually do this. Like
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Any other tangents we want to go on for this first John T. Mantis Star Wars showdown?
I'm just gonna say Asherat Het and then I'm
Oh,
done.
dude. Are we gonna start talking about
No,
that?
no, we're not gonna talk about Asherat Het.
Oh, what a wonderful character. What a brilliant multi-generational character. Just oh, fucking fascinating. Yeah, all right. Okay, next time. We could do a whole episode just on him.
We'll have to make it about Star Wars RPGs because
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so this will probably be a bonus episode. Ah, fuck it. We'll put it on the main feed anyway. Who cares?
Yep.
We don't have a secondary feed. What the fuck am I talking about? All right, take us out, Jess.
All right. If you are looking for us, you can find us at Jaunty Mantis on Threads. You can find us at Jaunty Mantis on Instagram, and you can email us at jauntymantis@gmail.com.
Keep it brief.
Don't just write what you just follow your heart. Um, I am on X at Jingoist Fett.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't know. I might enjoy it if someone actually messaged me, but you know, that's not your problem, dear listener. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
uh, yeah. And Maddie, how do you feel about social media for
It's
first
just
time listeners who wandered into this episode for some
it's
reason?
it's a stain on humanity that future generations will look back at and laugh at us for. Like there are these things we look back at human race in the past and we're like, what the fuck were they thinking? You know, it's a volcano. There was no god inside the mountain who was angry at them because, because of their stupid rituals. Like social media is going to be that thing. And if we're lucky, it'll be so brief and it'll be such a blip that nobody will really remember it. But I think social media ain't going to make it into the future.
I hope you're right.
Yeah, me too. I'm doing my part. All right. And until next time, get out there and fucking watch Ahsoka. God damn it.
And watch fucking Rebels or some shit.
Yeah. And fucking watch Clone Wars or some shit. Or The Bad Batch, dude. The Bad Batch is so good.
We have to stop. We have to stop at some point. But you're right. Okay. Good morning, good night, wherever you are. This has been the Jaunty Mansions.